All right. So what Hive was intended to do was keep your code current, secure, and reliable, and then you can work on the things that you want to work on outside of that. So this things, keeps you up to date on things like CVEs, the 0 days, stuff that come out quite frequently and are coming out more and more frequently because the cadences is speeding up because people are finding more ways to exploit code and especially in open source. And there's not a whole lot of people maintaining open source projects. There's typically on the average is 1 to 3 people for most open source projects that are dedicated and want to work on them full time, or at least most of their time. And then you get a handful of people that will chime in every so often to help out. But that's not enough to really support uh, a mission critical open source project if people are using it. So something that happens quite often, though, you hear a lot of these anecdotes is that people talk about, I got AI to do something, but then I got it to do it once. I can't get it to do it again correctly, or it doesn't match my expectations. And so then you go back to doing it yourself, and the whole thing was futile. You spent tokens, you spent time, and it was wasted. So this this is an interesting quote here. Maintenance eats the maintainer. So if you have a repo and you know where your hours are going, they're going into triaging issues, bumping up dependencies, fixing tests, like Mike is doing on KSKS and KS Kubeflex, reviewing PRs, patching CVEs, keeping the CI moving in a green direction, and answering the question, is all of this stuff that I have built over time that's so cool, is it being maintained? And none of that is the reason why you started the project in the first place. But all of it is why it's kept alive, why it keeps progressing, right? And why people see it. So the tax is generally on your time. How many people are you going to assign to just do the mundane work? Are there people out there that are happy to do that? Sure, but they're few and far between. So if you're lucky enough to have one on your projects, that's great, but most people don't. So Hive becomes the thing that pays that tax. So you're basically not prompting anymore. You don't have to do that. You start orchestrating multiple agents. So you get reliability, but it doesn't come from a smarter prompt. It comes from what we structure around the AI agents. Okay, this is repeatable workflows, clear boundaries between the agents, and checks that catch the mistakes before they land. So that's what Hive is comprised of. Hive has multiple agents working on multiple things at multiple times. You have each one of the hives has a lane that they work on and they stay within. Things like the quality agent will work on increasing quality and test code coverage for your repo. The CI maintainer will do that. It will maintain the CI specifically for your repo. So there's I think 7 or 8 of these. Well, no, there's 10 of these agents at the highest form of what Hive can do. There's as few as 2 or 3 in the lowest form. There's different grades or different levels that you can use Hive to achieve. And you can also add your own agents. You can add as many as you like, and you can change the way Hive works entirely. You can have it do something completely different than monitor or supervise a repository. So that's the general gist, is that each of these agents becomes a specialist and it works at its own cadence. So there's a cadence that breaks down how often each of these agents should run, and that's done by assessing the current load on the given repos. So you can see up at the top right, there's Copilot. That's the method. So you can that click that drop down, and you'll be able to choose things like Claude CLI, Copilot CLI, LLMD, VLLM, Light LLM, Goose, any number of things. And on the right hand side, that list can be generated dynamically. Those are the models that you have access to as part of those platforms and part of those methods. And you can see information about when the last time the agent ran. This one specifically ran at 1:15 in the afternoon, and then the next time it's going to run is 3 hours later at 4:15. How many tokens it's consumed, et cetera, et cetera. And then you see a terminal session here, a TMUX session that's captured and placed in front of you. You can actually click that terminal button in the top left, and it'll take you to a TMUX session that's running that agent live. And then you can, if you choose to, interact with it directly. I don't typically do that, but it's a feature that's there. You can do that. Um, so specifically speaking, in Hive, the agents can only do what you let them do. So there's plenty of guardrails inside Hive. That's what makes it safe to run Hive agents. You get this scoped access in the GitHub token that's assigned to a given agent. That means the token will refresh and renew and be reminted, if you will, every few hours or every few jobs, and therefore it doesn't allow any kind of rogue access using an older token by some other method or some other process. So that's one thing. Gated changes. Agents will open PRs if you let them at specific levels of the usage of Hive. They will open these things automatically, but they will put them on hold, and that's intentional because the idea here is that you don't want something merging something automatically. If you want to put a review process in place, you can. You also have the full usage of the CI that's associated with the project. So as as you ratchet up your CI, you don't have to maybe review as many things inside of a given PR, and therefore you might be trusting of the of Hive to automatically merge things for you. So when you start off with using Hive, you can run in what's called advisory mode. What happens in advisory mode? Hive will open an issue in your main or your default repository. So let's say you have 7 repositories, you pick one of them, and that's where Hive will put comments in a re, in an issue to give reflect back onto you what it's found so far. And if you choose to, you can actually just go ahead and set up an agent to run against that one specific issue and open other issues or open PRs to resolve them. So you're set up in an advisory mode. It's a very non-obtrusive mode of operation for Hive. And therefore, Hive's not doing anything to open issues, open PRs, automate anything beyond just making comments to an issue. And then we've introduced just recently something called the trajectory review. And the trajectory reviewer takes a sentiment of what the agents are working on and determines if they're working in the right direction, if they're working in the overall spirit of what Hive has intended it to do, and it's not running off the rails and looking to, hack into the NSA. So that's a very important new part of Hive. So this idea uh, of Hive didn't really. This is not just set up some agents, put in some prompts, and let them run. That's not how it works. So there's a lot of things that go into checks and balances of how these agents work. So we use the differentiation between deterministic and non-deterministic tooling. So non-deterministic tooling is the way that an agent operates. It's answering open-ended questions about open-ended things, and it will give you a different response each time it runs. Versus deterministic information, which is things like how many issues are in my queue, what issues are ready to merge, what PRs are open and can be potentially merged or reviewed, and et cetera, et cetera. The mixture of deterministic and non-deterministic information in Hive allows agents to have specific guardrails to do specific things with specific information. Doesn't allow for, in other words, agents don't have the option. There's a proxy that runs and stops them from running things like GitHub issue or GitHub PR or the GH commands. So this way, the agents can't get industrious, can't get intuitive enough to look around the repo for things to do. You've instructed it for that specific session as to which specific issues and which specific PRs and what specific knowledge to use. So you've really have scoped how far an agent can operate. And it does a very good job once it's given that specific instruction. It's much more efficient. 90% plus, this is I find is the key to opening up Hive to do full automation. Without proper lines of test coverage, and I deem that at 90% or better, you're no better than any other open source project that's out there that's accepting PRs from random contributors. Contributors, just like AI, can put in good or bad code or anywhere along the range between. So the same criteria that you have for successful projects that are accepting information and contributions from random contributors or hundreds and thousands of contributors, that those same repositories like Kubernetes and Prometheus and a whole host of others, they all use that same principle. The quality, the testing, the lines of code coverage testing has to be at 90% or better for them. In some cases, it's only 80%. But what it does is it gets people out of most of what's being tested does not have to be re-reviewed every time a PR is inserted. And a lot of that becomes instant feedback for the maintainer or for the contributor, so they can make adjustments and rebase and PR and changes to their PR to fit the change that they're making to the code such that it passes the tests. Once you've gotten through 90% test coverage, there's a very high likelihood that what you've written is at least is has some notion of quality and aligns well with the code base. So this is no different than having an AI agent do the same thing. When an AI agent sees it's failed 90% lines of code test coverage, it can go back and say, well, I failed that. Let me go fix it so that it does match the test. So at a minimum, you're getting at least a PR from either an AI source or from a human source that is high in quality. It may not do exactly what you want, what it was intended to do. That's a different discussion. But at least it's at a point where you can review it and have pretty good confidence that it'll run and test and qualify according to the tests that are created in the repo now. So the multi-stage CI that we have, also we have multi-stage CI. So multi-stage CI in KubeStellar's console, which is one of the repos that we run Hive against for test purposes and also for full automation, is the idea that not everything runs on a given PR. Hourly, we have tests. Every 4 hours, we have tests. Every night, we have tests. So this multi-stage CI also doesn't slow it. It reduces the amount of slowdown you'll have on a given PR and its tests against CI. And then it'll also and then later on, if something else was not caught that takes longer to test for, then it will be caught in that regular cadence of that stage of that CI running. Now, again, this is a common practice in very, very big projects where you don't want CI running for hours on a given PR to give someone feedback. It's okay to accept a PR in the first stage of CI that may not qualify in later stages of CI. And at later stages of CI, you get what's called a post-merge or a post-merge failure. And then you can still back out that PR. You can blame that PR. You can ask the contributor to do more work against it. The agents are knowledgeable enough to know that this CI does things in multiple stages, and therefore it will eventually catch a problem should it occur. And again, all this uses any model that's at your disposal. So this has to do with any model through Claude, Copilot, Gemini, a local open model that's in VLLM, LLMD, Light LLM, Goose. You can use Kimi K3, anything you want to do here. So the way that the agents stay on track is they don't use their own context. As I mentioned earlier, they clear their context each time they run. So they use something called a shared work ledger. And this is an implementation of adult database from something called Beads, which is out of a project called Gas Town Hall. And I like that specific technology so much that I decided to incorporate it into Hive. This is a running ledger that runs alongside for each one of the agents, and the agents get their work off of that queue. The information that's held in a bead, it's very atomic. It's very small amount of information about what it's been working on in issues, what it's been working on in PRs, and then how to use that information to do what's next or what to continue working on. This eliminates the need for the agent to keep its own context. And it also allows agents to pass work between each other safely. So as I mentioned, each agent is going to start off with /clear. This doesn't allow any kind of accumulation of local context and eliminates confusion and stops agents from running amok. So the agents themselves, if you think about it, are carrying their own context with this use of beads. So something else I want to recognize and bring up on this call is that everyone is trying to build what Hive is. You don't have to do that. So stop trying to build Hive. Hive exists. If you want to, everybody's trying to get agents to run in a loop and trying to get them to run safely, consistently, etc. You don't have to do that. You're burning weeks and tokens to do this, and it's already there. So we've solved the reliability problem. We've solved a lot of the safety issues, and we continue to do so. So there's no need for you to reinvent the wheel. Just point it at your repo, and get what you want, get your outcome. So, and again, if it is vigorously maintained. So if you hit some kind of a flaw, or you're missing some kind of a feature that you'd like, go ahead and open an issue, and we'll address it immediately. So you're going to be helping lots of other people by doing that. So we have 6 maturity levels in Hive, as I've mentioned earlier. The first level, it's just going to allow you to do things like create a project from scratch, or add existing features to existing projects. The second level allows you to do a little bit more than that, and allows you to work with advisory information. This is where most people start, right? It'll open PRs, it'll open some issues, it'll get you going in in the right direction. And then level 3 is where most people arrive when they want to start increasing the quality of their repo, and the projects that are inside of it, or their organization. And once they've done that, that gets them set up for more semi-automated and automated interactions using Hive. Once those quality gates are set up and the metrics are there, and all your CI is working as it should in multi-stage or single stage fashion, then you're ready to take on more of the semi-automated features and advancements in Hive. It'll take care of things like opening up issues, reviewing them, and then also, if you would like to, it'll still hold them on hold, or you can go full bore and allow it to select to do all the merging on its own. So this is a dial. You can move this back and forth. It's not a one-way process. Some people will get to level 6 and then decide they want to build a new feature, and all the things that you had in level 1 are in the level 6 dashboard. So everything is cumulative from top to bottom. And this is how you select which level you want. You get clear information about how many agents will run, such as an assisted mode, instructed mode, measured mode, adaptive mode, etc. And so you can even preview what it would look like before you use it. As I mentioned earlier, there's multiple agents that run, and depending on which level of ACMM you choose, there will be more than 2 or 3 agents available to you to run. And here you see a cadence chart. This is the governor. This is a specialized, more deterministic agent than anything. And all its job is to do is evaluate how many issues are in the queue that are actionable. These are issues that are not on hold for some reason. And once it's determined that, it can then set what mode am I running in. And that mode is completely adjustable. You can adjust that to whatever you'd like. And for instance, for KubeStellar's console, I say anything with 5 or lower actionable issues is in quiet mode. And quiet mode, it dictates how often these agents will run. And the good thing about this is that it actually helps reduce the number of tokens that are used, because you don't have to run these agents every 2 seconds. You run them every few hours, and then you run them against models and methods of your choosing, and then you that gives you a way to control how much you're spending in terms of maintaining your repos. This is the advisory digest that comes inside of all levels of well, actually all level 2 and beyond. And this advisory information is what you'll see as comments inside of each in your Hive advisory issue that gets opened in your repo. You can see there's linkages back to the actual GitHub issues. They talk a little bit about what exactly was done, the action that was taken. And these are all more or less, these are the formats that the beads come back in. And so you can see each lane is represented here, from the architect, the brainstorming agent, CI maintainer, the scanner, and each one of them can open advisory comments on the advisory issue. Now, you might be asking, okay, well, you're clearing context, you're using beads, but maybe that's not enough color for my agents to use. Well, we have also incorporated LLM Wiki, which is an implementation of that, the LLM Wiki, where it uses knowledge sources. These could be just MD files in your repository. These could be academic papers that you found online, and this could be things from things like Context 7. They could be Obsidian notes, et cetera, et cetera. Also, the beads that close automatically, that are closed because PRs have been closed in your repo, automatically get transformed into wiki elements, and then they get ranked and reused inside of your prompts. So the general gist of when you use Hive is Hive is handling keeping the lights on, so to speak, right? So it's maintaining all your dependencies, your vulnerabilities, and making sure they're mitigated, making sure CI stays as green as possible or as long as possible. It removes flaky tests. It triages issues, reviews PRs, and the result is that the repo is visibly, it's first, if somebody was to run statistics on those repos, it would look like it's fully maintained and it's not, basically the last time someone checked something in was 3 years ago. Like, would I trust that work? Well, for certain things I might. For certain things I might still want some maintenance. I might want somebody to be able to respond to me and tell me, hey, I would like something more in for this project. Can I open a feature request? Can I do this? Showing signs of life and activity is good for an open source repo, even for a closed source one. And that frees you up time to do the things that you want to do. Build the features because you've got the ideas, and you can use agents to do that too, of course. You can look for adopters and grow your community bigger. You can write, you can speak, you can build academic papers, you can promote your work, and you can set the direction and the strategy of your project. This is the whole reason why you started an open source project in the first place. You didn't start it because you wanted to chase CVEs or make sure CI stays green all the time. That's what everybody has to do. So get rid of that mundane stuff. Hive has been running on real projects for on its own and for several months now. This is almost more than half a year, 6 months plus, and it's maintaining in the CI that we use for KubeStellar console, which is one of the main projects that Hive I have running against. 90+ percent lines of code test coverage, and this is going on 24/7 for 6+ months. So you can look at the write-up for this in the paper that I wrote on the AI code-based maturity model. It's at this link below at archive. And this is the main page for the Hive Hub. This is the projects that I'm monitoring. You can sign up and request your own Hive. It's free of charge to run the Hive. We run it on shared infrastructure that's offered by the CNCF. So you don't pay for that, and you just hook it up with the CLIs that you choose to use outside of the Hive. In addition to running individual agents, you can also do something called the contributor relay. And what the contributor relay allows you to do is people can sign up quite simply and easily to run an agent against your repo to pull issues off your queue. So what Hive does is it queues up a set of issues, and you go ahead and run a local agent, and the local agent will start pulling things off that queue in order. So you could synchronize and have 10, 15 contributors all running private models, all doing work on their own, all contributing back to the same repo. This is something like the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, or like sewing at home you've heard maybe in the past, or um, solving for crypto, right? Um, where you run an agent locally to help mine crypto coins. So this is very similar to that, but this is doing it for a repository. So this is how you do that. You just select which your CLI you want to use. If you want to do this in a containerized or bare on the host, and then if you want to use Docker or Podman as your runtime for that container, and then it simply installs the GH command line, clones the repo, exports the hub that you want to run against, and then uses just commands to contribute using it. And then you'll see an agent start running in the background, and you can leave that open, close it. You can run multiple agents, et cetera, et cetera. So there's room for you to get your own Hive right now. Go up to hive.kubestellar.io and request a Hive. That's located here. So just click on request a Hive and you'll send a message to me. I'll see it and I'll give you the access to provision your own Hive. Get back to my page. So there's room for about 200 plus more Hives. They don't take up a lot of room. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes to provision, and you can use it on GitHub Enterprise in your private repos in your organization, or you can use it on GitHub repos in the public. And you don't stand up the infrastructure. You don't have to wait for this. There's no procurement you need to do. Just simply point it at a repo, and a dedicated Hive will spin up for you automatically. Okay. So start where you're comfortable. point Hive, request a Hive, point it at your repo, start it at a low level, level 1 or 2, and this will help you get your advisory issue started, and then raise that ACMM level as you see fit. The ACMM level you'll see clicked in the top left hand corner. You just simply select the one you want, and then it'll apply the agents, the cadences. It'll make all those changes for you, and then get your hours back. Basically, you were spending time on maintaining a repo. You no longer have to do that. You have Hive. So that's it for my presentation. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. So if you have any questions or comments, or you'd like a Hive of your own and you don't know how to get started, go to KubeStellar-dev in the CNCF's community on Slack. Thank you so much all for your time. I'll post this later on today on our YouTube channel if you'd like to review it or pass it along to others. Thank you.